Hi, everyone. Welcome back to People Jew Wanna Know podcast. It's about time we get today's guest on the podcast. I feel like it's taken too long to get this type of guest on. Today's guest is Shana Tibi, who is a professional matchmaker. Shana specializes in Jewish matchmaking and even works with Aleeza Ben Shalom, the matchmaker from Netflix's iconic show, Jewish Matchmaking. Without giving too many spoilers, Shana even helped cast a couple of the characters on that show, and she'll talk about that in the episode. We cover a ton on this one with Shana. Shana walks us through her background, how she got into matchmaking, and she shares countless helpful tips for modern daters. We talk about the show Jewish Matchmaking, of course, and I even tell Shana a little bit about my own traumatic dating experiences and what I call my dating hot takes. Spoiler alert, Shana and I agree on a lot of things, actually. My dating hot takes are not that hot or spicy after all. Shana also gives us her opinion on where she thinks Jewish dating is headed. If you're Jewish and single, you should definitely be listening to this episode and taking mental notes. Before we dive in, however, a friendly reminder that if you haven't yet, please follow People Jew Wanna Know on Instagram at People Jew Wanna Know. And if you've enjoyed our episodes, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Okay, enough promotional stuff here. Let's dive in and please enjoy this episode. Hello, Shana. Thank you so much for coming on People Jew Wanna Know podcast. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. And I'm thrilled to be on this podcast.
I'm so happy to have you here, and you're our first Jewish matchmaker on the show, which is a real treat. I've been desperately waiting to get someone on for matchmaking, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you. So my first question to you is, tell us about yourself. What do you do, and how did you get there?
Yeah, fantastic. So tell you a little bit about myself and how I got into matchmaking. So I'm born and raised in the suburbs of Detroit. I lived in the Bay Area, California for a while. My background is that I have a master's of social work degree, and that's my background. I had a crazy experience that kind of pivoted my life into a different direction. It's the one about how I met my husband that truly launches into my matchmaking career. So I could tell you that. I was working as a social worker in Northern California, and I was doing a home visit for a family, and I had locked my keys in my car. And this was around 2008. So back in those days, people didn't have, a phone that like a smartphone. People didn't use, Google Maps. Things like that didn't exist. And so I dialed directory assistance 411. Hey, any locksmith it was Oakland, California. Any locksmith in Oakland? Okay, connected me with a locksmith. Guy pulls up, gets out of the van, white van, starts opening the door. And the mother of the family, keep in mind, I'm her social worker. We're not hanging out for, a friend visit. And I'm standing there on the street, and she's looking at us both. And she noticed something, and she says to him, hey, where are you from? And he's like, Israel. And she's like, that girl's Jewish. You'll have to go out on a date. So one thing led to another, and spoiler alert, that's my husband, and that's how we met, because I called for a locksmith in Oakland, California. So fast forward, a bunch of the social workers were laid off, and I was one of them. And at the time, we had been dating for 6 months. And he said, I will take you to Israel. Let's meet my whole family. I'm like, okay, let's see. Is this guy going to do what he says he's going to do? Am I going on a trip to Israel? Is this happening? So yes, totally happened. And it was really the thing that changed my life. Not only visiting Israel, but entering into this relationship with somebody that then turned into my husband. So we ended up having a major negotiation at the end of the trip where I met his whole family. We stayed for 3 weeks. Longest date ever, 3 weeks. And then basically we agreed, okay, we're going to get married. We're doing this. So came back to the States. And we were there for another year. And then we decided that we were going to move to Israel. That was part of our negotiation. So how did I get into matchmaking was that once I was laid off and then we decided to move to Israel, I spent 4 years there. We had a wedding. Our kids were born here in Israel. And then we came back to the US after about 4 years in Israel. We came back and we're living in Sarasota, Florida, because that's where my parents are. And basically, I was helping him develop his business. So I was doing all the networking groups. I just got really involved. And I thought to myself, I love connecting people. There's nothing more satisfying to me. Forget about it. It wasn't even about matchmaking then. It was like connecting people for various, you need a plumber. Yeah, I got a plumber for you. You need a doctor. Sure, I'll help. People that were coming to town, they would like somehow get introduced to me. So I was known as a connector. So fast forward, there comes a point in a married person's life where I think, it was like, we can't live together, work together, parent together, and be in a relationship. So the thing that had to go was the working together. So I thought to myself, what do I love to do? I love connecting people. And then I decided, I'm like, I just know I should be a matchmaker. So I started in the field. I became accredited. There's some certifications. And that is how I became a professional matchmaker.
Wow. And do you do exclusively Jewish matches, or you'll do a bunch of different types of matches?
I started as a professional matchmaker with all types of people. And then because of who I am, I gravitated towards Jewish matchmaking. And that's when I met Aleeza Ben Shalom from the famous show, Jewish Matchmaking. And then I had my husband and I, after 2021, we came back to Israel with our kids. And I knew Aleeza was there. So I reached out to her like, hey, we're in a similar field. Let's meet. We ended up meeting and we just hit it off. We really loved meeting each other. We slowly started working together. And now today, we exclusively do VIP matchmaking together. So today, I would say 99% of our matchmaking is, yes, Jewish matchmaking.
That is so cool. And you also helped recruit the couples that were ultimately cast on Jewish Matchmaking. You had made 3 matches of the Netflix Jewish Matchmaking couples. Can you talk about them and who they were and your experience doing that?
I think I can now. I think enough time passed where I'm allowed to now. So yes, I was starting to work with Aleeza, and one day she tells me, she's like, hey, have you heard or seen anything about this show that's going to come out, Jewish Matchmaking? Like, yeah, of course. I'm really into pop culture. Of course I heard about it. She's like, I'm going to be that matchmaker. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then she asked me for some, help. She's like, do you think you can help me behind the scenes, make some of the matches? I'm like, absolutely. Her show, she's the face. She's amazing. Like, whoever saw it knows it's an amazing show. So behind the scenes, yes, I did help. And I'll tell you some of my favorite ones. So everybody knows the guy in LA who lived with his mom, like everyone knows that guy. So the woman, the first date he had where the end of episode 1, there's this like iconic moment where she flips her head and she has red lipstick and she's a gorgeous Israeli woman. I matched her. I got her on that show. So that was like, for me, wow, like seeing it all come together and watching that moment, I was like, yes, like you slayed it and you look awesome. So that for me was a great moment. Also, one of the fan favorites and an Israeli favorite is Cindy. So I helped get her date, the one that, he's a super nice guy in real life, I swear. I know he was like late for the date and there's a couple moments.
He has a bad sense of time.
Let's give him that. But, as a person, like definitely a nice person. Not a match, nice person. And then the one, I did most of the Israeli ones. So that really young, attractive guy who everybody's like, are you serious? Do you need matchmaking? The guy in Israel, he went out with the vegan cat owner. So those are the 3 that I helped to get on this show behind the scenes.
That's amazing. That show, I love that show. I just reference it very often with my friends because I feel like it really encompassed like the experiences that we have. It's not an exaggeration. It's not, unrealistic to what regular people experience. And I kind of want to pick your brain. I want to use this time to pick your brain about modern dating today and especially Jewish dating because this is people do want to know. So what do you think is happening in dating? Because I say this all the time. dating has gotten so much harder for me, and I think all of my friends. We talk about this all the time. What's going on with dating?
Okay, let's dive in. So, first of all, you're right. People are coming to matchmakers because dating is getting quite hard. Listen, I am not against apps. I know Aleeza's not against apps. We're not against them at all. However, they can be very draining and they can suck your time. And there's a lot of people misrepresenting themselves. And is this a real person? Is this not? So it's draining for people. So for people that have that type of, dating app fatigue, going to a matchmaker is a good start, is a good choice. That's one thing. So you were asking about some of the challenges in dating. I would say that's one of them. Sometimes there's just so many choices and people are feeling overwhelmed by the amount of choice and the amount of who's next, who's next, who's next. And that makes people not feel good about themselves.
One of the challenges I have, and we have this debate at Shabbat tables all the time with my friends as like a fun little, icebreaker for different Shabbat dinners. It feels like dating social norms are evolving. Like in the past, for example, I'm going to take a very, archaic example. Women didn't make money. Women didn't have jobs. So when the courting process was happening in traditional dating, it was always very clear to both the male and the female that the man would take care of everything. It was part of the courting etiquette, right? But now that's not the case for women. So a big sticking point is like when the bill comes out on the first date, what does the woman do? Does she offer? Does she bat her eyelashes? Does she smile and wave? Does she say thank you? Like what happens? My favorite is the bag fumble. The bag fumble is when you pretend like you're going to offer to pay by fumbling in your bag. But those norms are changing. And when I ask my guy friends, they have different opinions on what ought to happen when the bill comes out. So something that I wanted to ask you is, you're a matchmaker. So in some sense, in advance, where your client stands in terms of their expectations for dating. Do you think those norms are changing? And do you think males and females, and on average, have different philosophies around dating?
Absolutely. So you're right. As a matchmaker, I do tend to know where people are coming from ahead of time. So I do dig in there and I like to ask people, do you envision yourself in a traditional type of relationship? Are you envisioning that the man's the primary breadwinner and the woman is, quote, the CEO of the home? And even if she works outside the home, do you envision yourself in that kind of traditional gender roles? Or do you envision yourself as more of a partnership? It doesn't have to be exactly 50-50, but like more or less, do you see yourself in a partnership? Or, hey, do you envision yourself like as some type of power couple where you're both, earning and striving and traveling and things like that? So yes, I do get to know that kind of information ahead of time. But I would say for a date, I do recommend, we're talking first date here, and a first date does not have to be expensive, but for a first date, I would say, let the guy pay. Let the guy pay. Say thank you. People want to feel appreciated. I'm sure he would appreciate the thank you. Nothing else is expected after a thank you, but let the guy pay. It's a first date.
My opinion on this is, if we knew upfront what those dating philosophies and lifestyle philosophies were, we would have a much easier time dating, because ultimately, in some sense, these little things around etiquette and preferences on, do you see yourself as a partner or as more of like the CEO of the house? Those are actually deal breakers, because when you meet somebody, your two lifestyles and lives have to be compatible as is. One person's not going to give up their life to join yours, their whole lifestyle, how they operate today. So there has to be a compatibility and outlook. And because we have access to so many people today through the apps and just modern times, we end up kissing a lot of frogs because we're meeting people who just don't match our philosophy. And that's what a matchmaker does. They vet to find people who have your same philosophy in some sense, who are compatible to you on their outlook of life. And I hope, one of my big hopes is that it becomes more ubiquitous. I think, to me, it's special because when you add the Jewish component to it, there's also a dimension of how do you want your Jewish family to look, which a matchmaker really helps with, because a lot of couples fall apart in the sense that they can't find alignment on what they want their family to be like. Should their kids go to Hebrew school? Should their kids keep kosher? How are the holidays accounted for? Those are the things where you either have to really work together, someone has to compromise or concede, or really the best scenario is you agree from the get-go. And that's the kind of stuff that a matchmaker helps close the gap on. So I love the work of a matchmaker, and I hope it becomes more mainstream in the future. The other thing that I find interesting is I have girlfriends who will say, I always offer, and then if the guy takes me up on the offer, I know not to give him a second date because he failed my test, quote unquote. And I think that's so backwards because if anything, doing this like mental gymnastics, litmus test kind of thing is more of a reflection on you than it is on the other person. If you want to signal to the person you're with that they've asked you on a date and thus you expect them to pay, you can't do this trick where you like offer to pay but hope they say no. You need to communicate what your expectations are by acting and carrying yourself in the way that you want the other person to perceive you. So I completely agree with you. And I've always been under the impression that it's totally the wrong thing to do this like test, a test of character.
Absolutely.
So something else that I wanted to pick your brain about, we bonded over this offline when we first chatted and met. I used to have what are called Marge's dating hot takes, where I used to share with my friends and on social media what I thought were my hot takes on dating. And the one that you and I both agreed on that I asked you about is this concept of treating a date almost like a job interview where you have to present your best self. That means you dress up, you show up on time, you make the best impression, you carry yourself in an appropriate way. Whereas my friends drag me for it and say that that's not how dating should be treated at all. So from the matchmaker, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it. Shana, share your point of view on this.
Okay, I love it. Listen, I think the phrase job interview gets a bad rap, and I think that's maybe where people are getting like stuck on. So take that word away and replace it with, I think dating is more about networking. You're not hunting the person in the room. You're not there to catch someone that feels a little desperate, but what you are there to do is, yes, represent yourself as your best self every date, every time. Because first of all, if that's not going to be your person, oh, well, that's not your person. But then representing yourself as your best self, they might remember you and be like, Shana wasn't for me, but my cousin is looking for somebody and she was a really nice, interesting person. Why don't I tell him to reach out to her? And vice versa. You might know that the guy you went on a date with isn't for you, but if he is a referable human being and you think he's a good guy just for whatever reason, not your guy, great, pass him on, refer him on. I mean, this is what this should be about. It should be about helping people make the right connections and being somebody who you would refer on to somebody else. So yes, look good, show up happy, show up confident, show up as your best self, and show up like ready to network, make a good impression, and see what happens.
Are there any words of advice you would give to young people in cities like New York or LA or Philadelphia, where most of my listenership comes from, words of advice that they could use as they navigate dating today?
Totally. So you're all in great spots because there's a lot of different people. There's a lot of activities. There's a lot of options. Here's my advice. If you know that there's something that you love to do, whether it's yoga, cycling, you love to you're philanthropic in some way, whatever it is that you love to do. I'm not saying to learn a whole new thing. What I'm saying is do what you love to do in a little bit of an adjacent way. For example, you love yoga, you go to yoga at 7:00 every morning, you go to the same studio, you see the same people, and you go at the same time. But you love yoga, you don't want to learn how to, mountain bike. So I would say do yoga, but at a different studio or at a different time. Do something that you love, but like in a place that you're going to widen your network. Remember, dating is networking. Widen your network, widen your prospects, make new connections, and it could still be the things you love to do, just like adjacent from what you're already doing.
My friends always say, I love going to the bars and I always meet guys at the bar, or I love going running, and so I met this guy from my run club or from my gym. I'm like, that's all cool, but I need someone Jewish. So what do I do?
Totally. I mean, listen, I have this course that I created and Aleeza helped produce it. So we have this course called Be Your Own Matchmaker. And in that, we are teaching, top tips to everybody and anybody from a professional matchmaker's perspective. And so, one of the things we are doing is helping people understand where to look online, where to look in real life. There's all these groups online. If you don't want to go to the apps, don't go to the apps, but you can easily go to Facebook. You don't even need to be like an avid Facebook user. I don't even know if people in your generation even use Facebook. But anyway, for example, you can go to Facebook. You can go to groups like Corona Crush, RJ Shidduch, Meet Jew. There's all these wonderful groups that are online for Jewish singles, and people are putting themselves out there. You don't have to. You can use the search bar. You can go to one of those groups, type in Brooklyn, see who pops up. These are people marketing themselves. They want to be contacted, So these are some vetted good groups. If you find yourself in a weird group, bounce out. But, go to groups that are populated. Go to the events, if that's in your comfort zone. Take a friend. There's so many Jewish things happening all over, especially in cities. You can find one thing. Any action you take will yield a result. Challenge yourself. Take one action a week and you're going to meet new people, get different results, be in a different network.
I love that advice, especially because you can't expect different results from the same approach to something. So just like from a logical perspective, you're going to have to put yourself out there and try new things to meet new people and get a different outcome. It's tough. I feel like a lot of times I try to live by the philosophy of be interested, not interesting, because I have a lot going on in my life. And honestly, if I met a stranger, I could talk their ear off about all the things that I do and all the hobbies that I have and all the interests that I have. But I try to take a step back on the date and really get to know them and see if they're compatible by being more interested in asking them questions and trying to tell myself to check it and not talk about all my hobbies and my interests and funny stories that happen throughout the week. But at these events, that's something that I struggle with. I often feel that people are not interested.
That is a good point. And again, paralleling to networking, you don't need to get stuck in a really long, awkward conversation with somebody at an event. Actually, you should make it your goal to talk to lots of people and have short conversations because you don't get trapped in this like awkward, long thing where you're like, ooh, what do I say next? What do I say next? No, like try to, work the room, meet different people. Or if that's not your comfort level, have your goal to meet 2 people, 3 people, whatever you're comfortable with. But definitely short conversations is fine. And it's absolutely fine to tell somebody, it was really nice talking to you. Next, like I'm going to walk over there now, however you want to smoothly do it. But gaining rapport with somebody is really important. I'm telling you, people, I talk to so many people all the time about their preferences and intimate things about their life, but people tell me a lot of stuff because it's more about gaining the rapport and the trust and letting them know that I'm interested in what they're saying. People will open up to you way more than you would ever expect.
Actually, some of my proudest moments are I've gone a couple of times in the last year on dates where I didn't like the guy or he didn't like me, but he was like, I think you're so funny. Can I keep you in mind for my friends? And I was like, you know what? That's a huge compliment. That is a huge compliment. So I agree with you on that. There's something that I wanted to ask you about. As a matchmaker, you get clients from all walks of life, and you are responsible in some sense to be their champion, even if you see by interacting with them that they are doing things that are getting in their own way. So let's take the guy from LA in Jewish Matchmaking who is convinced that he deserves to be with a supermodel when he himself lives in his mom's house. Like in his mind, he thinks he's entitled to all of these things. He might not realize that maybe those are not, so important in the grand scheme of things, but he is also not realistic with himself around what he has to offer to someone in light of the entitlements he has. Mm-hmm. So if I were his matchmaker, I might recognize those things about him. So the question in that is, when you see a client like that, will you give them tough love? Or how do you navigate that? Because there are people that still need to work through things when they date. All of us need to work through things when we date, and we have things that are holding us back. If there weren't, we would have already met somebody. So how do you manage that as a matchmaker?
Okay, well, first of all, you're hired as a matchmaker because that's the heart of everything I do. It's not just introduction.
Thank you.
It's not just intros. I can introduce people all day long, but that doesn't mean they're going to be in a relationship. So yes, a few things to unpack there. First of all, you said something so key and so fundamental. People do come with their long lists. And guess what? You can have as long as list as you want. That honestly, I don't care. That's perfectly fine. But I want people to think about, what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the relationship? What do you have to offer? Why are you dateable? Why are you, somebody who would attract the person that you want to date? Are you that person? If so, amazing. Like, I can get you tons of matches. But, a simple example. If you're somebody that goes to CrossFit 5 times a week, and you want somebody who's also fit, like, that makes sense. That's a lifestyle choice. That's like part of your life, and that goes for anything really. If you live the lifestyle that you want to attract, great. Like, you're bringing that to the table. Now, on the other hand, you're right. People come with their long lists. So I like to tell people, actually, I encourage people, dump it out there, make a long list, brain dump on a piece of paper, on your smartphone, whatever you want to do. Make that long list. But then at the end of making your long list of must-haves, I want you to identify your top 5. I want you to say, these are my must-haves. And especially, as a matchmaker, I'm not there. I do not judge. I'm not there to judge my clients' preferences. I'm there to help them meet the right people based on their preferences. But then I want to know, okay, now where are you flexible? Because if you want all these different things, and you expect a volume of matches, I mean, hey, that's like a little unrealistic. So yes, I am helping people navigate. There is an element of tough love, but at the same time, it's more like understanding what their real needs are. And ultimately, people want to get themselves into a relationship. So if they need to expand in one area a little bit, I'd like people to be open-minded about where to be more flexible and where they're really, really fixed.
So when I was 23, I was almost cast on an HBO show called First Dates Hotel. It aired 10 seasons in the United Kingdom, and it was going to make its big debut in the United States, and it was being produced by Ellen DeGeneres. That was like immediately after she had that whole PR crisis where she was canceled. So it was during the pandemic. They were going to bring the show. The premise of the show is real people go on first dates in a hotel in Italy. If it goes well, they go on another date. That's all. You just watch people go on dates. That's the premise of the show. And I watched some of the episodes. It is real people. They're not like people who want to be, B-list influencers after the show, like Love is Blind or anything like that. Right. And so when I say almost cast, what happened was they straight up cast me. They found me a date. He is Jewish apparently, but the show never went to production, so I was never cast. And when I did my interview for the show, they asked me what I was looking for. And I was 23. And this is what I said. I said, I have a framework. It's called 3 B's and a T. It's built, blonde, beard, and tall. Good luck finding that in a Jewish man. That is what I said. That was my this is what I was looking for. But if you ask me now what I'm looking for, I'd also give you 4 words. I would say I'm looking for funny, charismatic, ambitious, and Jewish.
Nice.
That's all.
Nice. I would ask you a follow-up question to that. Yeah. I would say, okay, you're talking about funny. I would want to be more specific. I would want to ask you, Margarita, what's funny to you? Is slipping on a banana peel and falling on the floor funny? Or is, witty, you know what I mean? Is witty humor funny? Is Seinfeld funny? Who's funny to you? What makes you laugh? Because that will really zoom in on the type of humor. Everybody wants someone nice. Everyone wants someone kind, but it's the details of what you find funny or what you think is kind will really lead you closer to your match.
Well, I struggle with that because I think you have to meet the person and get their full picture. What are they together with all of these qualities? Together doesn't meet the mark. Separately, like I can tell you, I think Jim Carrey's funny, but also like Nimesh Patel is funny, and they're completely different senses of humor. I'm not going to be able to know until I meet the person. I forget who said this, but it's like beauty cannot be described, but you know it when you see it, kind of thing. But reflecting on that, it goes to show that I came a long way from when I was 23. And when I said that framework, it had a bit of irony in it. Like I was in on the joke. I didn't say it seriously. I knew what I was doing. And that was part of the reason they wanted to cast me for the show, because it was this blonde girl who was like sassy and had this framework and was so confident and ridiculous. And it was very much a character for them, which works. But now I don't think anything closely to that. And a big part, you say, what do you bring to the table, right? So I think another like not coming of age, but like coming of maturity and dating lesson I had was I had to be really realistic with what I offer. My value to somebody is I'm not some like sultry blonde that's gonna like all be cutesy and charming and whatever. Like I'm the funny girl that is going to make you laugh on accident, like sing karaoke with you and crack jokes and whatever and have rap battles. Like I have a completely different appeal than you might think. And so a big part of dating is also meeting people who will appreciate that, who want that, because they might look at me and think, oh, she's like this blonde, girl or whatever, but that's actually not my charm or what I offer for dating whatsoever. I meet a lot of people. I'm like, I can tell you're not for me. You're not going to get it. You're just not going to get who I am. You know what I mean? You're looking for something else. You will want me to be someone I'm not. So that's another tough lesson. And it's becoming harder than ever simply because of the volume of opportunity. I meet people, I go on dates, they'll be in relationships for years and they've just gotten out of a long relationship where they've lived with someone. I've never lived with anyone, but I've gone on probably like 200 dates at this point. I've had a lot of practice.
Wow.
So it's also different experiences as well.
I think there is something to say for going out with the same person more than once, because if you found someone kind of charming, or at least you were curious to know more, but you would be able to give them a little bit of an insight into who you are if you had multiple dates. And they shouldn't be all dinner dates or all drinks. Mix things up a little bit if you're interested to get to know the person. If you're still curious about somebody, keep going out. And if you're curious about that person, let them see you in different, scenarios. I mean, not everybody's always picture perfect, ready to go. Maybe you want to go on a hike. Maybe you want to walk around Central Park. Maybe you do want to grab drinks somewhere. Allow people to see you in different elements to then slowly reveal different parts of your character so that they can understand that you're not at face value what they might have thought in the beginning.
Yeah, and I want to ask you something else. So when I first started this podcast, one of the first episodes I'd had was with Tiffany Harris, who is the Chief Program Officer of Moishe House. And they do these research studies and they look a lot at the research of dating and relationships because they have programming around couples, Jewish couples and interfaith couples. Some of the research she cited said that interfaith couples are the fastest growing couple category across the board, which will include Jewish people, and that interfaith marriage is becoming increasingly common across Jewish people. But I actually think it's more important than ever that we find a Jewish partner, or at the very least, somebody who finds it important to continue the Jewish culture, the Jewish faith, the Jewish values. And a lot of times the reason I only date Jewish is because my argument is that it's very hard to find someone who is not raised from childhood with those values that will understand and uphold them. Sure, if you meet someone who converted on their own and they want to be part of the faith and the culture, that's different. But if I meet a non-Jewish person off the street, they're not going to understand anti-Semitism or being part of the Jewish people. And that's just not something I want to explain or compromise on. And you said 99% of your couples are Jewish couples. Do you think there's truth in the importance of marrying Jewish?
Wow. I mean, Definitely. And honestly, since October 7th, I have to say there's been an unprecedented wave in people turning to us as matchmakers saying, I've dated non-Jewish before, but it is so important to me to marry someone Jewish. And they're turning to Jewish matchmaking, not just us, all the Jewish matchmakers, all my colleagues. Everybody's noticing this trend that even if people have dated non-Jewish before, the baseline for marriage is marrying someone Jewish.
Yeah, maybe the survey results will change in the coming years after what occurred, because I think the community is coming together in a new way. And I realize that that's just like not something that I can compromise on. But an interesting side tangent. In 2024, Shana, we're going to have to find my man, because when I went to Bali in May of 2023, I went accidentally to a healer who's supposed to read your future. And I don't really believe in stuff like that. But he said a couple of things that were freakishly accurate. Like he brought up my dead grandma, which like, I don't know how he thought of that, because it's the only grandparent I have that's not alive any longer. So I guess it's a 1 in 4 chance, but it did freak me out. But anyways, he said, this year, next year, Margarita, you will meet the man of your dreams. He will have brown hair and it looks like he has a little bit of a beard and he will have an oval face. I can tell you, I have now dated 7 men who fit those characteristics. And to this day, they are not the one. But 2024 is the year, according to the healer. So we are relentlessly optimistic.
Listen, I hear you, and let's make that happen. Matchmaking truly is about timing and network. The timing essentially is up to Hashem or whatever life force you want to, call it. Timing is a little out of your control, but network you can grow. And honestly, Margarita, you just stay ready, because that's what's going to happen. It's going to happen because, you're a smart dater. You're putting yourself out there. You just stay ready. And this guy is going to present himself and you're going to go on a bunch of dates and it's going to happen. So hopefully I'm the one that introduces him to you, though.
Thank you, Shana. I appreciate that. I've been so ready. It cannot be physically more ready than this. You know what? As we wrap here, I have a couple more questions for you that I wanted to ask. The first is, what are you optimistic about in the world of dating and Jewish matchmaking? We talked a lot about how hard it is, but is there anything that you're optimistic about?
To echo a little bit about what I just said, I am optimistic about Jews wanting to marry Jews. Like, that's exciting. I'm also optimistic about people looking beyond a piece of paper, for example, like a dating bio, and giving someone the benefit of the doubt and going out with them, even though it's not 100% in line with what they think they need or should or deserve, whatnot. So I'm optimistic about that. I see people giving people chances and I love it. I think that's a great thing. And I see people starting to date in a different way, meaning people are kind of done with the swiping, or they're done with the what I call picture shopping, and I think people really want an authentic connection, and they're meeting people. Like, listen, Love is Blind is an experiment, and it's a show I'm also obsessed with, by the way, but like, there's something to it. Not saying you're going to open up the door and after, getting to know someone and like looks don't matter. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying there's something to that system of just getting to know someone's heart and getting to know someone as a human being before deciding yes or no, is this my forever person? So I think people are giving people a shot and I love it.
Maybe there's something to Love is Blind because it's like a deep form of dating where you really get to know someone before you judge them or rule them out, because you have nothing else to do. You're sitting in that room no matter what. Whereas we have our lives, we have other things we can dedicate our time to. So we're quick to say, you know what, this is not worth my time. I have other things I want to fill my time with. I'm optimistic about those things too. And I try to bring that component into my dating, but also I'm very impatient. So I get in my own way in that sense. And the other question I have for you is, what's the best way to keep up with you on social media and follow your work? Where can people connect with you?
Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. So Instagram and all the other socials, at Shana Tibi, ShanATibi. That's a really good way to find me. I think I'm probably one of the only Shana Tibis, so I think you can find me. And a lot of times, also, if you follow Aleeza, every Monday we do a Match Monday where it's like a different shout out for a different like avatar of a type of person. And she always tags me. So if you look at her Match Monday, and then you can find me tagged Shana Tibi.
And isn't there a way people can sign up to be in your network so that if you have clients or people that might be a good match for them, you will connect them? How can they do that? I signed up for that.
I know. I love your profile, by the way. Yes.
Thanks.
So yeah, honestly, not everybody's ready to hire a matchmaker. Not everybody has to, and that's totally fine. So I do have a free and private database, and to get on my radar, it's pretty easy. ShanaConnects.com/join, and you just enter some basic details and a photo, and it's only for me to see. Like, I'm not posting this, no one looks there but me. So when I have a client that I'm advocating for, recruiting, screening, and vetting for specific clients, I first look to my database, which is very robust, and I have amazing singles in there, and I call people frequently. And I always do a screening call, and if I'm calling you, it's free. Don't worry. Everybody's like, do I have to pay for it? I'm like, I'm reaching out to you. It's free. And on the other hand, because I have an extensive network of amazing colleagues, other matchmakers, a lot of the times we leverage our matchmaking with the people in our databases. So I might have, a New York matchmaker reach out to me and say, hey, I'm looking for, women 25 to 35, this area, who do you know? I'll look to my database, and if I think it's a good match, I'll reach out. Hey, my colleague has a great guy. Want to talk to her? Maybe it's a match. Hey, free match based on compatibility just for joining my database.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. And last question for you. It's one that I ask every single guest. Who would you like to nominate for the podcast?
I thought about it so hard, but I really did. Listen, because I think it's a nice segue. Matchmaking is amazing and love is amazing. And a lot of the times it leads into a relationship. And I would like to nominate my dear friend, Ilana Frank. She is the founder of the Jewish Fertility Foundation. First started in Atlanta, and since she's such a rock star, she has spread them to different locations all throughout the U.S. So Ilana with the E, Ilana Frank, Jewish Fertility Foundation.
Thank you so much for that nomination. I'm so excited to meet her and chat with her. And it's been such a treat to have you on and learn more about your work. And you know what? Feel heard and seen by a matchmaker in my experience in dating. I feel seen.
Nice. My pleasure. I see you, and I'm going to help match you. That's going to be my goal.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this, Shana. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please go ahead and rate us 5 stars. Be the first to hear our episodes by subscribing to People Jew Want to Know wherever you get your podcasts. And for exclusive content, follow us on Instagram @People Jew Want to Know.